Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're diving straight into exactly how India is locking down its navigation independence with the seriously powerful new NVS-01 satellite. It's one of those topics that literally impacts everything, right? From that smartphone buzzing in your pocket all the way up to the highest levels of national security.
Here's our roadmap for This Explainer. We're going to cover the vulnerability of GPS, the birth of NavIC, the NVS-01 tech upgrades, the strategic impact, global standing, and finally, the core memory triggers you absolutely need to know. All right, Section 1, the vulnerability of GPS, a strategic blind spot.
Look, we all use American GPS on our phones constantly. Use it for driving, ordering food, or, pretending you're going to track your fitness today. But here is the massive assumption we make. What happens if the United States just decides to turn it off during a war? Relying on a foreign military's navigation system presents a massive strategic blind spot and a severe vulnerability during a national crisis. Because when push comes to shove, if you don't control the data, you are incredibly vulnerable. And that exact vulnerability is why ISRO stepped in to create NavIC. NavIC, which stands for Navigation with Indian Constellation, is India's fully indigenous regional satellite navigation system. It was designed to ensure that India never, ever loses access to critical navigation data again. To maintain this network, ISRO just recently used a GSLV rocket to successfully launch the NVS-01. This is the very first of their second-generation satellites, custom-built to replace the aging older hardware in this crucial constellation. Moving right along to Section 2, the birth of NavIC, from crisis to constellation. So, where did this all actually start? The real need for this system was born from a specific crisis during the 1999 Kargil War. India desperately needed GPS data to locate Pakistani bunkers, but the United States flat out denied access. Talk about a wake-up call, right? The government realized right then and there that relying on foreign tech was a liability they just couldn't afford. This sparked SRO to launch the first generation of 7 Iron SS satellites between 2013 and 2018. And that timeline brings us perfectly to the present day, culminating in the 2023 launch of the completely revamped NVS-01 satellite to upgrade the network. Which brings us to Section 3, the NVS-01 tech upgrades, fixing the hardware. Okay, so why the sudden revamp? Well, many of those first-generation satellites suffered some frustrating failures with their imported rubidium atomic clocks, so ISRO had to bounce back with some serious hardware upgrades. And the incredible commercial leap here is all about the frequencies. The older NavIC satellites only use the L5 and S bands, which most standard everyday smartphones simply couldn't read. But the new NVS-01 introduces the L1 band. This is the exact same frequency used by American GPS. This means pretty much every new smartphone and wearable device in India can now easily connect to the NavIC system. It takes the tech from specialized military hardware and drops it right into the palm of your hand. Plus, we have to talk about the massive upgrade to the timing hardware. You see, navigation satellites basically figure out your exact position based on exact time. NVS-01 uses an incredibly precise rubidium atomic clock. But the real game changer here is that it was developed entirely in India by the Space Applications Center, or SAC, in Ahmedabad. This completely ends India's reliance on those failing, imported European clocks. It is just an absolute masterclass in self-reliance. Let's hit Section 4. Strategic impact for India, securing the skies. Because India fully owns these satellites, it guarantees absolute strategic autonomy. NavIC provides 2 distinct services to make this happen. First up, there is the Standard Position Service, or SPS, which is an open signal for civilian users, people like you and me. But secondly, and honestly most crucially, there is a Restricted Service, or RS, which is heavily encrypted specifically for the military. This dual service model guarantees that Indian missiles and fighter jets will never lose their critical navigation data during a war. There's another huge advantage here, and it's literally about where the satellites are parked in space. Standard global orbits can often get their signals blocked by mountains and tall urban buildings. But NavIC satellites are placed in geostationary and geosynchronous orbits looking directly over India. Because they are positioned right overhead, their signals can penetrate deep Himalayan valleys and dense urban canyons way, way better than standard GPS satellites ever could. Zooming out a bit to Section 5, global standing and challenges, looking outward. To put this all into perspective, only a very small handful of nations actually have their own navigation systems. You have the USA with GPS, the EU with Galileo, and China with Baidu, all of which are global systems with a worldwide range.
NavIC, on the other hand, is uniquely tailored as a regional system. It is designed specifically to cover India, plus a region extending exactly 1,500 kilometers beyond its borders. So it's highly focused and deeply efficient for exactly what it needs to do.
But hey, it's not without its hurdles. Despite the brilliant tech behind it, commercial adoption remains a pretty significant challenge. While that L1 band integration we talked about helps immensely, massive tech giants like Apple and Android manufacturers have been kind of slow to actually integrate NavIC hardware, especially into their budget phones. But the government isn't backing down. They are aggressively pushing tech companies to make all devices sold in India NavIC compliant. And looking to the future, ISRO is already planning to launch the remaining 4 NVS series satellites over the next few years to ensure this constellation remains highly accurate and robust.
Finally, Section 6. High-retention memory triggers, the exam summary. If you really want to firmly grasp the magnitude of this shift, lock in these core triggers. The catalyst? The Kargil War GPS denial. The big solution? The NVS-01's L1 band and those incredible indigenous atomic clocks from Ahmedabad. And all of this culminates in one ultimate goal, which is your key buzzword, absolute strategic autonomy.
So, that officially wraps up our explainer on NavIC. We've seen how a moment of deep vulnerability was flipped into a seriously robust indigenous constellation. But it kind of leaves us to wonder, doesn't it? With strategic autonomy now completely locked down in Earth's orbit, how is this newfound technological independence going to shape and propel India's future interplanetary missions? Think about the upcoming Aditya L1 mission to the Sun. Keep that provocative thought in mind as you continue exploring ISRO's incredible journey.